Good morning, everyone. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be here today for Kidquake. My name is Ileana Pulu, and it's my honor to be your MC for this morning. I'm a librarian at the San Francisco Public Library, and lately I've been working with some really awesome authors and crafters and teenagers who really like STEM, not all at the same time, on events for people to watch on YouTube. But honestly, it doesn't get more fun than getting up close and personal to a super talented author like the one we have today. She's going to share a little bit about her inspiration, her books, and more. So sit back, settle into your seats, take a deep breath with me, and pay close attention. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our author, Leila Sales. I have a little bit of an intro about Leila, so listen up. Leila's latest novel, The Campaign, just came out in September, only a month ago. She's the author of 6 other novels, including This Song Will Save Your Life and Once Was a Time. Leila has edited many award-winning and best-selling books for kids and teens and founded The Book Engineer, a book development business. She grew up outside of Boston, but now lives in Austin, Texas with her 2 cats, travels the world speaking about children's books and publishing. Let's snap our fingers for Leila.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I just wish that I could be in San Francisco seeing all of you in person. So I'm going to share my screen here because I have a little bit of a PowerPoint. Great. So as Ileana said, I am the author of a number of books. I have written 2 that are for kids your age, and the newest one is called The Campaign. And The Campaign is about a 12-year-old girl named Maddie who doesn't really fit in at school. She doesn't have many friends. She doesn't get great grades. She feels like she's always doing something wrong. The only place where she really feels at home is in art class. And then she learns something terrible, which is that the woman who is running to become mayor of their town is planning to do away with all funding for arts education. And that means no more art class for Maddie and no more happiness at school at all. So Maddie is devastated, enraged, and moved to action. She knows she has to do something to stop Lucinda Burghardt, art-hating bad guy. And she's not exactly sure what. She tries a bunch of things. And I am going to read to you a little bit of the book, just a page or 2, from where Maddie is first introducing this problem to all of the other kids at school. But she's not the one who's talking first. Instead, it's a girl who seems a lot cooler and is a lot more respected than Maddie, which is this girl named Polly. So Polly says, "You've probably never heard of Lucinda Burghardt before, but she is poised to become the new mayor of Lawrenceville. And if we let that happen, she is going to destroy our lives." Polly started pointing to people one by one and telling them what Lucinda was going to do to them. "Lucas, you know how the band gets to perform at Disney every spring? Well, not anymore. Deke, did you spend all your summer practicing so you could get a solo this year? Too bad." The room was a mix of horrified gasps, outraged no's, and stunned silence. "Chloe, are you proud of being named editor-in-chief of the literary magazine? Well, no one will care when there is no more literary magazine." "Michaela, were you excited to have a real author come visit Assembly? Get over it." "Dylan, did you like that field trip to Shakespeare in the Park last year? Never happening again." "Theo, is Mr. Sean a good art teacher? Well, he's gonna lose his job anyway." "That's what Lucinda is planning to do to us if she wins," Polly said. "Your own parents are probably planning to vote for her. Most adults are planning to vote for her. And you know why? Because nobody cares what we think." "But," Polly said, and I could feel the whole room hanging on her every word. Even I was leaning forward, eager to hear what came after "but," what our hope might be, even though I knew our hope. I was the one who'd found it after all. "But," Polly repeated, "there is one other candidate in this race. Her name is Janet Teneman. She wants us to keep doing art and being creative. We can trust Janet. All we have to do is get her elected. Isabel raised her hand like we were in school. Well, how can we get her elected when we can't even vote? She asked. We can't vote, Polly said, but that doesn't mean that we're powerless. So Maddie's going to tell us how we can win. Maddie, come on up here. The crowd parted to let me walk slowly to the front of the room. I climbed up on top of the table, so I was standing next to Polly. But as soon as I made it there, it was like whatever spell she'd cast on the room was broken. People had been willing to listen to her, but they definitely weren't going to listen to me. What does she have to do with any of this? Well, I'm going to call my dad and tell him to come get us. Who died and made Maddie queen? No offense, but has she ever won anything? Uh-oh. Now what was I going to do? To find out what Maddie winds up doing, you will have to read the book. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I came to write this book and how I came to be a writer in general. First of all, I always loved reading. It was one of my favorite things to do, and it still is. It was hard to get a picture of me as a kid without a book in my face. And because I loved reading so much, I also always loved writing and telling my own stories. This is one of the first stories that I ever wrote, probably when I was 5 or 6 years old. It was before I even really knew how to spell, but I just loved telling stories anyway. I started writing longer and longer stories as time went on. So the first time I ever wrote like a novel length book was when I was 11 years old, and I wrote the whole thing out by hand. So this is a page from it here that I took a photo of. I also have always really been interested in politics. So one of my first interactions with like kids taking action to try and make change was when I was in 3rd grade. We had a vocabulary textbook that I really didn't like. I found it very boring. I should be clear, I love vocabulary. That's part of what I love about being an author, is learning and using new vocabulary. But the textbook just made it incredibly boring. So I, in 3rd grade, started a petition against it. And there's a petition in the book, The Campaign, as well. And I got every member of my 3rd grade class to sign this petition saying that we didn't want to use this workbook anymore. And I presented it to my 3rd grade teacher. And would you like to know what she did? She tore it up into little pieces in front of me. So from this, I learned 2 things. One is that people who are in power are often reluctant to make change. And 2, that if you're going to make a petition, you should always make a photocopy of it. I volunteered for my first campaign when I was in 7th grade, just like Maddie. It was also a mayoral campaign, just as Maddie's running for someone who was going to be mayor, or just as Maddie's campaigning for someone who wants to be mayor. And I really loved it. I was one of the only kids who was volunteering there. And a lot of what I was doing was maybe kind of boring. It was, it was addressing envelopes. It was entering data into a spreadsheet. It was making phone calls to strangers. But I just loved feeling like I was part of this team and part of this community who was working towards a greater cause of something that I really believed in. And so since then, I volunteered on a ton of political campaigns pretty much every year of my life. I also was a competitive debater when I was in high school and college. And so there's a debate scene in the campaign as well. And maybe some of you have seen political debates. There was, right now there was the vice presidential debate just happened. A presidential debate happened a week or so ago. But they happen even, this book is about local politics. It's about people who are running to be mayor, and debates happen even at the local level. When I write books, I like to write about topics that are interesting and exciting to me, things that I want to learn more about, or things that I already know about that I want to share with other people. So of course, that's why I wanted to write a book about political campaigns. So I'm going to tell you guys a few secrets about being a writer, some things that you might not know if you haven't been a writer yourself. So one of them is that you have to revise a lot and you have to take feedback. Sometimes that feedback and revision is going to be small stuff like grammar. And sometimes it's going to be really big things, like you need to completely get rid of this character or completely rethink how this conflict is resolved. I did a lot of revision for the campaign, and the final product that you see now is really quite different from the original version that I wrote. And it's important to remember when readers, and particularly when your editor gives you feedback, they're not doing it to be mean. They're not doing it to make you feel bad about yourself. They're doing it to help you write something better. In part because of all of the revision that goes into it, publishing a book takes a really long time. I started working on the campaign more than 2 years ago, and it only just came out. Some of that is because of all of the revision that has to go into it, all the rewriting. And then some of it is also just that there's a lot of people who are involved along the way in the process of getting a book published. It's not like I finish writing it and then it immediately gets printed into bound books. There are editors involved, as I said. With this book, there was an illustrator. You saw some of her art earlier. Then there's also the person who designs the book. There are people who market the book and do publicity and sales and production and contracts, and publishing companies are made up of just hundreds and hundreds of people who make books into a reality. And I think one of the important things to take away there is that there are just so many ways to be involved in books and to have a career in books if they're something that you're passionate about. Another secret that people don't always know about being an author is that authors don't get to choose their own book covers. Sometimes we don't even get to choose our own titles. With the campaign, that is the title that I came up with, but I really had no idea what the cover was going to look like. The publisher chose her. My publisher chose the illustrator, and they showed me her website, so I'd seen a little bit of what her work looked like, and I knew I liked it, but I had no idea what she was going to depict on this cover until I actually saw it. Same with the inside art. An illustrator did all of those illustrations. I got to give some suggestions for what I thought they should look like. And then after I saw her sketches, I got to give feedback about how to change them. But a lot of it is just a total surprise when it comes to me, which is part of the cool thing about being an author. Though also can sometimes be hard, because sometimes you'll get a cover art that you don't really like, that you don't feel represents your book. And then you have to go back to the publisher and ask them if they can change it and do some compromising to try and get a cover that makes everybody happy. With the campaign, I loved the cover the first time I saw it, but I've definitely had the experience with other books of it taking a long time to find a cover that made everybody happy. And then the last secret about being an author is that authors are normal people, just like you. We're not rich and famous, with a couple very specific exceptions. We are just people who really love to read and really love to write and love to make up stories and imagine what if and play pretend. And if that describes you, then there's absolutely no reason why you can't be an author as well. Everybody has their own story to tell, and nobody else can tell your story for you. There's nobody else out there in the world who has access to the same information and ideas and thoughts that you do, and who would put those ideas and information and thoughts together in the same way that you would. So I think just something that I really want you all to remember is you don't have to be anybody special to be an author. You just have to be a person who sits down at your desk and writes. And that is what I do. That is what I've always done. And that's how I'm now the author of 7 books, including this new one. And that's what you can do too. And that's pretty much my presentation. This is a couple more little fun pieces of interior art from the book. And I think we're going to do a little bit of Q&A.
Oh my goodness, I'm riveted, Leila. I want to get my hands on the campaign right now to find out what happens. So thank you so much for sharing. We do have a couple of questions from Mrs. Mansier's 3rd grade class at Commodore Sloat Elementary in San Francisco. You just said how many books you've written, 7. How different are they?
They're all pretty different from each other. So they're not a series. Each one has their own characters. They're set in their own place. Most of my books are realistic fiction, like the campaign, though the one other book that I said I've written for kids your age is called Once Was a Time. And that one is not realistic. It has a little bit of time travel in it. And therefore it also has a little bit of history. It starts out in the 1940s and then comes to present day America. So a lot of my books, I think what they have in common is they're a lot about friendships and kids taking charge and doing things and making changes that maybe adults wouldn't usually expect kids to do. But otherwise, the plots in all of them are really different.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So 7 books to choose from, everybody. How old were you when you started writing? I know you shared like your first kind of novel draft, but yeah, how old were you when you started?
Yeah, I really always did. That's why I showed you the, the stories that I would write down from as soon as I, could write any words, even when I couldn't spell them. And then I wrote longer books. By the time I had graduated from high school, I'd already tried writing a bunch of novels. And I should be clear, some of those novels I finished, and a lot of them I started and I didn't wind up finishing. And that's still true today, by the way. Like, I'll try writing a story, I'll have a great idea for something, and then I'll get a few chapters into it and I'll realize I can't figure it out, or I lose interest, or whatever it is. But yeah, so I'd written a lot of books by the time that I actually got my first one published by a publishing company.
I love that you shared your secrets to being an author, or tips. It's super important because those questions are out there, right? And you also talked a little bit about how you write about what you're interested in. Have you ever run for an elected office before?
I never have, and I don't think I would want to, actually. I I'm not a very decisive person, and I think a lot of what it takes to be good in government, to be a good leader, is to make tough decisions in hard situations, especially decisions where they're going to disappoint somebody, because you can't always make everybody happy. And I really hate doing that. Like, I do want everybody to be happy with my decisions and not to be mad at me. A lot of being in government is often people will be disappointed in you. So one of the things that I really love about writing is that it feels like you can just play around with any sort of decision and see where it takes you. And if you don't like where it takes you, you can just revise all of that. Just delete those pages, write them over again, and try something new. So that's what I like about being a writer. But I love volunteering for campaigns. As I said, it like feels like really important work. So I'd way rather do that than be a political candidate myself.
And one quick last question, if you can answer it. What kind of book are you working on now?
Ooh, okay. So I'm working on another book that is also for kids your age, and it's also about kids doing something you wouldn't normally expect kids to do. But this one is about kids who find an abandoned museum and they start turning it into a museum of their own.
Nice. Cannot wait. Thank you so much, Leila, for spending some time with us today. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you. I think we're ready now to scoot over to seeing how this could happen in action with our activity leader. So I'm going to introduce Marya Brennan. Marya loves working as Director of Programs at National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo. She taught middle school English for 5 years, has written several beautiful, messy novels, one of them still in progress, so wait for that one to come out, and believes in the transformative power of fiction and creativity. Let's welcome Marya with some shine.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm accepting your shine right now. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'm super excited to be here with you all. Like she said, I used to teach middle school. Before that, I taught 5th grade. I know there are some 5th graders here, so shining back to you. And thank you, Leila, for that really incredible book and presentation. I can't wait to read it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Screen sharing complete. Present. Hopefully that's working. So before I get into our activity, I just wanted to, I just added this real quick while Leila was talking, because I work for an organization called National Novel Writing Month that helps people write novels. And when I say people, I mean people of all ages. So we have a special program and a special website for people under 18 to work on novels called the Young Writers Program. And so I added a little link. You can't click on it because I'm just a screen for you, but you could write it down. If you go to ywp.nanowrimo.org, it's a website that helps kids write novels, kids and teenagers, and even like really little kids. So if you want to get started on writing a novel, you should definitely go there. We have a big event coming up in November that will be really fun to participate in. Oh my gosh, I forgot to start my timer. Hold on. Okay, next. So I was super inspired by Lila's book, her story about Maddie, but also her story about herself, about writing a petition when she was in 3rd grade about her vocabulary textbook. When I was younger, I used to think a lot of things were unfair and I would get mad about a lot of stuff, but I didn't think I could do anything about it because I thought that that was something, the world was something that only adults could change. But I'm finding out now that that's definitely not true. Young people can definitely campaign for change, just like Maddie did in the book, but also in real life. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of young people making change in the world, and then we're going to practice something that you could do as soon as this is done to change something that you think is unfair. Okay, next. One thing that young people can do to make change is strike. So a strike is when you refuse to do something in order to draw attention to an important cause and convince others to listen to you. So the picture of the girl in that yellow jacket, that's Greta Thunberg. And she, when she was 15, decided that her government wasn't doing enough to work on climate change and fix the environment. And so she had a strike. She stopped going to school and instead she sat outside of her government's building with that sign that says strike for climate every single day until they would listen to her. And she was 15 when she was doing that, which is a little older than you, but not that much. So one thing that young people have been doing is striking. Another thing that you can do is march. So a march is when a large group of people walk together in the streets, holding signs and chanting for whatever cause they think is important. This summer, I went to a couple marches organized by high schoolers. So again, 15, 16-year-olds, not that much older than you, who were organizing thousands and thousands of people to march in the streets. I'm located in Oakland, which is just across the bay from San Francisco. So some Oakland teenagers organized a march. In these photos you see on the left, it's some teenagers from Texas who organized a march. And on the right, it's teenagers in Alaska who organized a march. So that's something that some people not much older than you saw something that was unfair, gathered a huge group of people together and marched through the streets saying what they wanted to change. Another way that you can make change is by writing a petition. A petition is a written request to do something signed by everyone who agrees and sent to the person in charge of things. Leila actually mentioned a petition that she wrote in 3rd grade in her presentation. Do you remember what she said? If I'm remembering right, she says there was a vocabulary workbook that she really hated. So she wrote a letter about why they should not have to use it. She got everyone in her class to sign and she gave it to her teacher. Do you remember what her teacher did? Ooh, this part made me mad. Yeah, her teacher ripped it up, which, oh, that just makes me, like, oh, I get so angry. Another example I had is if you wrote a letter explaining why your class maybe shouldn't receive homework on the weekend, you got everyone in your class to sign it and then you sent it to your teacher. That's a petition. It's like gathering a large group of people together, but instead of it happening in real life, you get all their names, all their signatures on paper or on the computer, and then you send it in. Okay, so today I wanted to show you an example of 3rd graders. I know we've got a lot of 3rd graders here, so I'll send you some shine as well if you're in 3rd grade. Woo woo. There were 3rd graders in Oakland, just across the bay from you, who wrote a petition. So they wrote a petition about this bird called the black-crowned night heron, which is a very special bird. They were learning in their science class that it only lives, or it lives in different places, but it really lives in Oakland. And the trees that it was living in were getting cut down. And so the babies in the nests were falling and dying. And so this bird was in danger. And they thought, that's not fair. A lot of times I think petitions or change starts when you have a feeling of that's not fair. I've got to do something. So they learned more about it and they found out that if they could make that bird the official city bird of Oakland, it could get more protection. So they decided to write a petition. This is their petition to the Oakland City Council. So remember, a petition is a letter that you write to someone, to someone. So they were writing to the Oakland City Council, who's kind of like the mayor, they're in charge of the city, asking for something they wanted to change. This was their letter. Did you know black-crowned night herons, oops, I gotta move this thing. Black-crowned night herons have the largest rookery in the entire SF Bay Area, right here in Oakland. These fantastic herons have a unique style, and they depend on Lake Merritt, the oldest state-funded wildlife refuge in the US. They also depend on clean water in the bay and in our urban watershed. These black-crowned night herons love Oakland just as much as we do, and they need our help. Will you please sign our petition and help us get the black-crowned night herons the recognition they deserve? Help us make them the official bird of the city of Oakland. So I noticed a couple things in their petition. It's pretty short, but it's powerful. I noticed that in the beginning, they included, did you see what they included in the beginning? Some specific facts about why the black-crowned night heron was important to Oakland. Facts are important because if you just say, help with this bird, maybe people will think, well, why? But if you include facts, then they understand why it's important. They also, at the bottom, made sure to include a specific request. They couldn't just write a letter and say, help this bird, because even if they got a lot of people to sign it, and then they sent it to the city council might say, well, how? We don't know what you want us to do. So they made sure to ask something specific. They wanted that bird to be the official city bird of Oakland. And guess what? They got it. So the photo of these kids, they got about 2,000 signatures, 2,000 people signed their petition, and they took 2 years, but the black-crowned night heron is now the official city bird of Oakland, and it's getting protection, and it's all because of these third graders. You can write a petition too. Here are 5 steps. 1, and you could try to do this now with me, but probably you should do it after because it might take a little bit of time to think, but I'll tell you all the steps now. 1, make a list of issues you care about and then pick one. So like I said, these can be things that make you think that's not fair, or they can be things that you really love and want to protect. It's good if it has a feeling for you because then you really care about it. You can think about things in your school, in your neighborhood, in your city, maybe even the world. So I thought of some examples. When I was in 3rd grade and 4th grade, boys always got picked to help at recess. That I didn't think that was fair. I was a vegetarian. I didn't eat meat. The school didn't have vegetarian lunches. I didn't think that was fair. My town doesn't compost anything. They just throw everything in the trash. And I didn't think that was right. I thought it was hurting the environment. And thinking about now, I was thinking, well, not everyone can afford reliable internet at their home. And that doesn't feel fair either right now. So for this example petition, I'm going to pick this, but you could pick anything that you thought wasn't fair. Okay, so I've got my issue. Then what? I have to think, what would I like to change about my issue? And who could I ask to do that? Because remember, a petition is a letter to a specific person. And then you got to write that request down. The more specific you are, the more likely they are to listen to you. So rather than just saying, help the birds, they said, make this bird the official city bird of Oakland. So for my example about internet, I could think, okay, I want all of Oakland, that's my town, so I started a little specific and small, to have free access to the internet. And I think maybe I could ask the mayor of Oakland to try to work out a deal with internet companies, since she's in charge of the city, and maybe she can figure something out. I don't know. So I wanted to put that together in one request sentence. So I said, the mayor of Oakland should make a deal with internet companies to provide free internet to Oakland citizens, especially kids. Because I'm worried right now because a lot of you, maybe all of you, are working from home and doing school from home. And if you don't have internet, it seems that's not fair, it's not fair. Okay, 1, I picked an issue. 2, I wrote my specific sentence about what I wanted to change about that issue. 3, any guesses? Facts. So 3, you want to make a list of facts that support your argument. And you can learn more about it if you need to. So those 3rd graders learned a lot about the black-crowned night heron and then put those facts about why they needed to live in Oakland into their petition so that the people reading it thought, oh, I should sign that. That's important. And so that when the mayor got it, she said, you know what, this makes sense. So here are some facts that I was thinking about internet and why people need it at home. I thought, well, everyone in Oakland is attending school from home. That's a fact. 2, kids need the internet to go to school and do their work now, right? How could you be watching this video or joining into your class or doing your classwork if you don't have internet? And 3, I thought a fact was not every family has the money to pay for the internet. And I was pretty sure that was a fact, but I did a little bit of research too. So the first couple of facts were things that I just kind of knew, but then I started to do a little research online. So I looked up how many people, I asked my question, how many people in Oakland have the money to pay for the internet? And I found an article that told me this number. Roughly 17,000 Oakland students don't have computers or Wi-Fi. When I heard that fact, I thought, okay, this is an important petition, I think, because that doesn't feel fair. And that's a fact that many people, like I didn't make it up, right? It's true, it's real, I can prove it. I found that article online. I'm gonna put that in my petition. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Any guesses on the 4th step? It's a big one. 4. You have to actually write your petition. You want to include that specific request sentence and the facts that support it. So remember, we looked at the example of those 3rd graders who wrote to Oakland City Hall or Oakland City Council about their black-crowned night heron. They included facts about why it was important, and they included their specific request, what they wanted the city council to do. So I'm going to include facts about internet and kids working from home, and I'm going to include my specific requests to the mayor about what I want her to do. So here it is. As you probably know, every student in Oakland is working from home right now. They have to attend classes online and then use the computer and internet to complete their work. But did you also know, my fact, around 17,000 Oakland students don't have access to computers or Wi-Fi in their homes? That's not fair. They're not being given the same education as richer students who have quick internet and multiple devices in their homes. Here's my specific request. Please sign my petition. So remember, I'm going to share this with lots of people and hope that they give me their signature saying, I agree with you. Please sign my petition asking the mayor to work with internet companies to make sure every home in Oakland has access to free internet. Every student deserves an equal education. Boom. Love it. If I was getting this letter as a petition and someone asked me to sign it, I would sign it. And actually, secret fact is the 3rd graders 2 years ago when they started working on that petition about black-crowned night herons, they sent it to me and I signed it because I thought it was so persuasive. Okay, so that's my petition. One thing that's important is I didn't write, like, honestly, I would love it if everyone in the whole world had access to free internet and to devices. Like, that would be way, way, way fairer. But I don't know who I would write to do that. I don't know if that's possible. So in this case, and in a lot of cases with petitions, it's important to start a little small. So rather than writing to like the president of the United States saying, give everyone internet, I'm writing a petition to one specific person, the mayor, and I'm focusing on my town, Oakland. You could do the same and focus on San Francisco or your school or your neighborhood. Okay, one last important step. Can you guess what it is? I bet you could guess. Because it's not just a letter that I'm sending to someone, right? I have to do something first. I gotta get some signatures. Then I send it to the person in charge. So signature part is important because everybody who signs it is basically saying, I agree with this, please do it. So it's not just you sending one letter, it's you sending a letter, but with a whole bunch of people who've got your back. You can do this with a physical letter, like you see these women are signing a petition, like a physical petition. You can also use a digital website like change.org to make a petition and then send it to people online and they'll sign online. That's how I did the, I'll show you really quick. This is 3rd graders petition, join our campaign for the official bird of Oakland. This is their petition and they did it on change.org. So they wrote it online, they sent the signatures around, or they sent it around and people clicked the button to sign. And that's how I signed. And you can see they got about 1,800 signatures. And you see a button right here on change.org, start a petition of your own. And that is what I'm encouraging you all to do today. You can get help from an adult. I think that the 3rd graders did, but it is also something that you can absolutely own. There are the steps again. I think this will be available to you after. I am super excited to see the change that you make in the world, just like Maddie in the book. And if you send me your petitions and you've got the facts and you've got that specific request, I will absolutely sign them for you. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you so much, Marya. That was such a great way to connect the book and actually doing something like creating a petition. So thank you so much. As we wrap up our time together, it's been so great to be your MC this morning. Don't forget to use your Scholar Card, your very own SFPL library card that gives you all the access to ebooks, books you can read or listen to, magazines, or even shows you can watch. Check out the library's website, www.sfpl.org, for more things to see, do, or read. And thanks for joining us at Kidquake. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.